Okay,
Live on Facebook.
we are here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live coaching call with Neato Marketing. And today we've got Stephen on again to talk to us about the parent avatar. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing so great. I'm so excited to be back.
Yes, we always love having you back. And you know what? Side note, for those that are attending live and for those that are also watching, Stephen is the mastermind behind Neato Marketing. So obviously, we've got our co-founders, but really, Stephen, you're the one that created the structure for membership and everything in that, right?
Yep, the website into the actual membership experience and a lot of the original content I created. Yep, I helped kind of build and do. So yeah, it was one of the most fun projects I've ever been a part of. And so I love that I get to still be a part of it and pop back in to say hi and see how everybody's doing, and love seeing the results and the success that folks are having and all of that. So it's so fun to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. Including all the courses. You've done a majority of our courses as well.
I've done a lot of the courses. Yep. So you have most likely heard my voice. Hopefully that's a pleasant experience. You never know. You never know. If you're like me, you hate listening to yourself. So for me, I've always been like, no, I'm not. Is it there? Okay, great. I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to hit publish, and whatever feedback I get is great. So.
Oh, I do the same thing. Actually,
Yeah.
I think most of us do actually.
Yeah.
But you created the fundamentals of marketing for us, but there is a course inside of that that talks about the parent avatar.
It does. I'm actually referencing that today, so I'm glad that you brought that up. It does a little bit of what we're talking about here. It scratches the surface. I'll go a little bit more in depth within that today, but I've got some resources in there that I made that I'll reference here as well. But yeah, I would highly recommend to everybody, if you're starting to explore the avatar, that's a great. It gives you some good perspective, some good context as well, just how an avatar fits within the greater kind of whole of marketing and how you can use it to influence your marketing and inform your decisions and things like that.
Yeah, that's right. And so this is also just a follow-up call from last or 2 weeks ago, because we had Matt on our call last week. We had Kim Snyder, who is a head of school in St. Louis, Chesterfield Montessori, and she did such a great job of really giving us the framework to work off of when it comes to parent avatars and the importance of doing that, and really looking into who we want to bring into our school, which then helps us do everything so much easier, right?
Yes.
Like the parent avatar is so important
Yep.
to your messaging, to who you
Yep.
are, to building community. I mean, I find it so essential.
Yeah, this is honestly the foundation of everything that you do in marketing. It's a lesson that I've had to keep learning over and over and over again in my career as a marketer and really as a communicator, right? And as pretty much everybody on this call is, right? Every teacher that I know is an incredible communicator. That's something that they're very passionate about. And it just makes sense. If you're trying to teach or if you're trying to communicate, you have to know who you're talking to. You have to know, well, what level, where are they coming from? Right before they walked into the room, what are they bringing with them? What's their experience prior to that? Otherwise, you don't really know what to teach. You don't know how to say things in a way that's going to make sense to the person. It's the exact same thing here in marketing, but and in business, really, this isn't just marketing. It should be informing much, much more than that. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well today. But it's just funny how so many of those crucial lessons that we oftentimes do automatically, as soon as we move into a realm that maybe is a little more unknown, like marketing, it just kind of flies out the window and we forget all the things that we know and all those best practices, sort of, which is, again, what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. So we've got a good crew here today. We've got about 5 or 6 people here. So if you're here live, chat in. I'll make sure to keep my eyes on that. But Stephen, I'm going to let you take it away.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. And again, same thing as last time. Dialogue is super welcome. So same thing goes for you folks that are attending. If you have questions in the moment, if I say something that there's a little voice in the back of your head that goes, I don't really know what he said. I heard what you said, but I don't really know why, or I don't get it. That happens to me all the time. So please chat, and then same thing for you, Deneen, if there's something that you want to touch on or clarification, interrupt me. Like this is just a kind of an open dialogue. So
Mhm.
I'd love to know where everybody is from as well. That's always just kind of fun on these. So we've got a few folks. I see Augusta, David, Gracie, Christina, Laura, Linda, Vicky. I'm in Tennessee. We just moved out here from Phoenix, Arizona. So lived in the desert, grew up in the desert. So I sound like I'm from the west side of the country. Now I live in Tennessee, north of Nashville, about an hour, really in the country. So I'm surrounded by Southern accents that are pretty strong. Which my dad's from Texas, so I also grew up around a Southern accent, but still, it's funny to be just so in that.
Yeah, totally. And I'm in the frozen tundra, also known as Minnesota. So we've got a Canadian here, Linda,
Yeah,
I'm talking about.
exciting.
And then, Madison, Wisconsin. Vicky's from Madison. And David is from Washington, D.C.
Yeah, we got excited about Canada, Linda. I don't know why. We got so pumped.
Oh
Like,
my
yeah,
God,
Canada.
Canada. Yeah, I love Canada. We're basically Canada because, well, we're like a 7-hour drive, but
Yeah, yeah.
we get each other, you
You're
know?
right there. I get it. I get it. I lived in Boston for a little bit, and it was so fun to be that close. It's like it's right there.
Uh-huh.
And we've got some folks. We'll take you. Thank you. Yes, yes, we appreciate that. But yeah, that's so always so fun. This is such a privilege to get to connect with so many people from all over the place. So thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for giving your time and attention, the most valuable resource. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I don't have like anything crazy. You're not going to be sitting through, a webinar like slides and stuff. This is a fun tool that I use just to outline my thinking a lot. It's called Workflowy, and it's basically just a series of lists. But what's so cool is each list becomes its own entire list within it. So I can expand any of these an infinite number of times. So it just gets really fun and it's really helpful to organize. So anyway, that's what we're looking at here. Happy to share this with you afterwards if you want that. We can post some stuff here. I have some resources too that we'll share. But anyway, I'll go ahead and dive in. So we're talking about Avatar. I forget the woman's name from last time. You said Kim?
Kim, yep.
Kim. So yeah, Kim talked a little bit from the Montessori school owner like perspective, right? So she's the head of school. She talked a little bit from that perspective, and I'm the marketer, right? So I'm coming in with a marketer brain. I've done this for many different types of companies, many different types of businesses and clients. Right now I'm in software. So I'm spending a lot of time in that realm, which is its own animal completely. But it's amazing how many of these lessons apply to everything. And this is especially relevant for us right now because we've been doing a lot of this work ourselves. So I'm really fired up and ready to talk to you about this. So the avatar, just as a quick recap, an avatar is your ideal customer base. It's your ideal, if it's a great kind of prompting question, is if you could clone like one person for your school, and I'll use, school terms here. If you could if you could clone one family, really, that's what we're talking about. If you could clone one family and just have a bunch of them, like they get you, they were primed and ready when they walked in the door. They just love everything that you're saying. They're involved, all of that stuff, right? Like we're talking Leave It to Beaver, like, style stuff, the Andy Griffith Show, like that level, of they're just so great. You just wish you wish everybody acted like them. That's who we're talking about. And it's what we're really trying to do is define that and define where they're coming from, both before they find you, before their journey. So understanding how to reach them and how to market to them and where they might be, but then also the experience that they have at your school. There are so many different people out there. I, as a single mother who has 4 kids, is going to have very different needs and expectations maybe than, a family that is married and they're really well off and they have 1 kid. So there's all kinds of different things, and that informs your business, that informs your marketing, that informs your communication style, like all that stuff. And so that's really what we're talking about here, is really what's the process of, great, I know I need an avatar. How do I actually do that? What is that thing? And then how do you then kind of put it into your school? And so for me, there's really three parts. I kind of have them defined here. You need to define your avatar, you need to summarize your avatar, and then you need to use your avatar. So those are the 3 steps. Look at that. I can just shorten those. Define, summarize, and use. And a lot of people skip these last 2 steps completely. It's amazing how many times this happens. You'll define it, you'll do all this work to write it all out, but then you'll end up with this massive document or chart of just all of these data points, and nobody really understands it, especially after you've like gone to bed and then you come back the next day and you go, what was I thinking? Like, there is so much. Why did I say that again? Like, there's so much there. So you've got to summarize it into something that is easily digestible. And if you were to hand it to somebody else, like another member of your team, they wouldn't have had to have gone through the initial exercise to understand your findings, right? So we need like a little summary report. And then obviously you need to use it. And that again is the thing that will take time and repetition and consistency over time to reference it and go, okay, this is who we said our avatar is. Now we're going to use it to inform decisions. So let's go through the process to define. If this all sounds good, if this is what you signed up for, give me a shout in the chat, or just shout on your own. That's fine. I can't hear you, but you could do that as well. Maybe Deneen can hear Linda from Minnesota.
I can. Oh my, yes.
Yeah, there it is. Great. So let's go through define. And I've got some principles down here. Don't worry, I'll get to those. I'll reference them in here. So first, we're going to get really detailed. That is kind of the first step of this. It's, if you've ever tried to write a book or really write anything, a lot of times they call it like a vomit draft. Sorry for the imagery, but it's just, you just get it all out, right? You just blah, and there everything is, all the details. That's what we're going to try to do here. And then you kind of sift through it all and make sense of it in the second step, in the summarize step. And as a quick side note, you want to start with your brand script. And that was the topic last time I was here. We talked about the story brand. And then you guys actually worked through the brand script. That is invaluable. I would say between the two of these, the brand script is a more critical thing. However, if you remember the brand script, it talks through elements of a story, right? And how you fit into your parents' story. You're the guide, they're the hero. You play a role in their journey, not the other way around. And so in the brand script, in the story brand thing, you define your character and what they want. Boom. It's very, very light. It's very like, you have a parent who wants their kids to have a great education. They need a school, right? They need to send their kids to school. Problem is, they don't really know where, and they really want to be good parents. Like, they want their kids to have the best education, that kind of thing. What we're doing here, and that's like a kind of a 30,000 foot view. What we're doing here is zooming in to the hero, like to them, like who are they really? What makes them tick? How are they acting in their day-to-day lives? What conversations are they having? We're trying to quite literally get inside their heads. Like the goal is, and this is true for all marketing, but also just the experience that somebody has at a school, you want people to feel like you've been inside their head, like you've been somehow reading their mind, and you have been reading through their journal and their diary entries, and you've been listening in on conversations they've been having with their kids, and all that kind of stuff, which I think Montessori tends to that anyway. Because it's so different, and it touches on so many core things that parents deal with and that kids go through as well as they develop, that kind of is naturally there. But that's again what we're really trying to do. We're trying to get into their heads. So again, brand script, critical first step, but we're diving into the hero a little bit more. That's how this all sort of fits in. The other side note is that we mentioned a course at the beginning. I have the link here. Again, I can share that out, but we're all members of NITO. There is a course called Digital Marketing Fundamentals that I created a while back, and we actually have a worksheet that is helpful. Again, it's a little bit more of a surface level stuff. We'll go into this a little bit. It also, this is sort of a weird combo of the brand script and a kind of a typical avatar exercise. So you could use this if you want to, if you find this helpful. If not, we'll go through some of it today as well. But again, I talk about the avatar in this lesson as well. So great course to go through if I say so myself. So use that. So let's dive in here. Ask yourself, I kind of said this already, ask yourself what family you wish you could clone. Just the type of family. Imagine them right now in your mind. It's going to be different for everybody. If you're thinking like, oh, a parent or parents with kids, like get more specific. Like think of like a specific parent or specific parents, a specific family, like their names of the kid, all of that. Like picture them right now. Just pick one. And again, somebody that you wish you could clone. They should be somebody who understands, they're mission appropriate. They understand what you're doing. And try to think back to when they started as well. They weren't like a super dramatic family, right? There wasn't all this drama. There wasn't resistance. It wasn't awkward. Like things just flowed. It worked, and it was easy to get them kind of in the door. Like they just got it.
You know, another thing too is like, who's your greatest advocate?
Yes. Advocates. Yeah, exactly. Who turned around and they're now promoting you to other people. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Advocates. And it's that whole process, right? Like the whole, like not everybody fits this, but there's probably somebody who was great at the beginning. They were great in the middle, and now they're great, on the tail end here. So that's a great call. And this ties into principle one is you want to base your avatar on real people. It's helpful to say, okay, we're going for, parents in this area of this income level with this many kids. That's helpful. It's so much more powerful if you immediately have a picture of who this person is. If you can think of like, oh yeah, we're trying to get more people like them, right? So that's what we're trying to do. Base it on real people. There is so much content out about how to create an avatar. If you do a Google thing, there is a ton. There's a lot of different approaches. So this is sort of my variation, my version of having done it a bunch of times and then having to turn around and use it. And that sort of ties into the third point here, another principle, which is you actually have to use this. So it's a helpful exercise, but if you don't use it, it's kind of useless. So it's not kind of useless. It is actually useless. And so a lot of this, if you've heard other things, that's great. Go learn it, decide what's useful for you. In my experience, it's really helpful to base it off of real people because it's just so much easier for you to actually incorporate that. Then you're going to write down every detail of that family. And I've got some example questions, example prompts here. But this is a conservative list of things that you could think of. But at the very least, get the demographic information, right? And this is not the real meat of it, but again, it's helpful. So how old are the parents and the kids in the family that you just thought of? And do this as we're talking. This shouldn't take you super long. Some of these other questions like get a little more in depth, but these initial ones should be really quick. So do it with me. Age range of each of them. If the parents are close in age, just do it for both. But if it's just one parent, then do that age and the kids. Are they married or not? How many kids does this ideal family? We're not talking about like on average of your whole school, not what we're talking about. Ideal people, the people you thought of earlier, How many kids do they have? What are their jobs? How much do they make? If you don't know that, guess. Do they look like an insurance person? That's really, maybe mean, but again, this is just an exercise, right? Or just, if you know, awesome. If you don't, say like, don't know, maybe something like this, or something in this field, right? You can guess, or just say maybe it's a white collar job. They're a manager, or they are an executive, something like that. They're an athlete. You don't have to know the exact title and workplace and all that. Rough idea of income, the car they drive, what kind of house are they in, and what kind of neighborhood are they in? I didn't put that in here, but is there an HOA? Is there not an HOA? Are they surrounded by land, or are they kind of dense? Like, we're trying to create a very visual picture of this person's day-to-day life, their day-to-day experience. Their favorite restaurants, groceries. A lot of this you can fill in for yourself. Like, I know, a lot of, I know a certain type of person, like, probably shops at Target. Like, they love Target and it's great and they love it. If you don't have Target where you are, I'm sorry. I am one of those people. Love Target. It's great.
Go Minnesota.
Yeah, I wish they were a little more sustainable, fair trade, things like that. So we don't do a lot of our clothes shopping there now. But anyway, yeah. So things like that, though, like, where do they shop? Because, like, that's a big deal. That's, again, we're trying to get their day-to-day experience. So that's an example. There are other things like that, and this is where you get to use your own creative judgment on what is useful to you. What do you wish you would kind of know, like, what's helpful for you? What serves you in sort of crafting this type of thing? If it's helpful for you to imagine them at dinner, like, write down what they usually eat for dinner. If it's helpful for you to imagine, what their kids, how they play with their kids. It's like, oh yeah, the dad and son play catch. Or they all go to the park, or they walk a dog. Do they have a dog? Do they have pets? Right. That's another huge thing. So whatever is useful to you, you can kind of think on this. I'm trying to give you the tools here for that, but that's what we're getting at. And so really, yeah.
Let me ask you a question here. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a list of just the physical parts of what they do, but do you ever get into, like, personality traits, or, like, previous knowledge, or do you really just want to stick with the physical side of it?
No, so that's funny. That's exactly what I was just doing. So this is demographic. Now I'm kind of getting into this is another group of questions here, which is, what do they want? And we're starting to get into more psychological type things. That's definitely a big part of it. And it's customized to what you're trying to do. So yeah, their knowledge of Montessori, where they're coming from, their experience with that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Got it.
I'd highly recommend that. So I'm going to say this is the psychographic information down here. And then, yeah, you could say Montessori specific. And then maybe how much do they know about Montessori already? It's always great to type live in front of people. Yeah, so the psychographic, and a lot of this, especially as we get into here, this is going to this is related to Montessori. So what do they want? Okay, well, we're not really talking about, like, that's such a wide open question, right? Like, what do they want? Well, maybe they want to be more in shape as well. Maybe they want to adopt a dog. That's not really relevant. It's what do they want as it relates to what you offer, which is their children, which is a school, which is education, right? So what do they want as it relates to their kids, as it relates to their upbringing and their education experience? What keeps them up at night about those things? And what are their dreams, right? So when they're sitting there, keeps them up at night. You can actually read that two ways. Some people, they lay awake at night and dream. Some people lay awake at night really freaked out, right? And really scared. Fears are keeping them up at night. I would say this is actually more related to fears. What keeps them up at night that they're afraid of?
There you go. Get specific, Stephen. There we go.
Get specific. got to take my own medicine here, right? Get specific. Yeah. And this is the most useful stuff, because when you can really understand, um, when you're sitting down to write an email, right, a marketing email, or you're announcing maybe a new program, something like that, this is the type of thing that you come back to and refer back to. Um, if you're offering maybe a new summer program, here's a very real example. Launching a new summer program, you want to send out an announcement. Your goal is to get enrollments in a summer program. Well, this might seem dramatic. Like, well, what are parents, thinking about at night, that they're afraid of, that my summer program can help with? Well, no, like they might be thinking like, gosh, I hope that my kids have good memories, right? Like, I don't want to get to the end of the summer and have wasted it. And like, I don't want my kids to grow up and not have like great memories of stuff that we did, like, and that reflects on them, right? And like, I know this is very personal. My dad thinks about that all the time. He's told me, it's like, man, I always think about ways that I could have done your upbringing better. I hope that we did enough. I hope I gave you the right experiences. That's very, very real. Mm-hmm. And so this is so helpful when you do that, because you can speak into that, because it's a true and authentic place. Like, hey, like, this is how you do that. This is how, like, if you want to give your kids an incredible experience over the summer, this is how you do it. We have an option for you. And not only are they going to have fun, but it's going to help them develop and grow into these incredible people, and then you get to bring in the weight of the benefits of Montessori as well. So
perfect.
Side tangent there on a real use. So what are their dreams? What do they do on a weekend? This is less intense than that, but what are their favorite social media platforms? So again, activity, behavior, what do they do? And again, you can do as many as you want to here. I'm sure if you were to search some other avatar questions, you'd come up with more things here. And then Montessori specific, that was what we just talked about. So I didn't obviously have any prepared ahead of time for that, but yeah, you can think of what would be, again, helpful for you to know. That family, right? Did they know anything about Montessori? Did they have a little taste already? Had they read a book about it maybe? Write that down. As much about their experience as it relates to you as possible. Okay. And as a pro tip, if you can't remember, or if it's been a long time, talk to them, ask them. Say, hey, I'd love to get your feedback on something. If you have it in your budget, to give them like a $15 Starbucks gift card or coffee or any gift card, right? Do that. Say like, hey, we'd love to give you a gift card for your time. But talk to them, interview them, schedule a call, bring them in, all that stuff, and ask them about, like, what was life like before you came? Like, what were you thinking? All that stuff. That's the best way. That's really one of the best marketing tips I can give, is talk to your parents, talk to the people that are your customers, right? Talk to them, get a sense of their experience.
Like, as a parent too, it's like honorable to get asked that, right? Like, if you approach them and say, like, we have noticed how incredibly engaged and valuable you are for our community, and we really want to know more about your journey. So can you share that information with us? Can we go grab a cup of coffee and let's talk? I just wanted to learn more about, how, as a parent, I would feel so like, honored, and then also just like, wow, you see me, like you acknowledge that. And then you're like interviewing me about my experience. Like, how cool is that?
So good. Yep. That applies on so many levels. And there are so many good things about that, right? There's a whole concept of brand deposits versus withdrawals, right? And that's a major deposit on somebody. Like, they're like, oh my gosh, like this is not just a school. And hopefully at this point they know that, right? But there's already a relationship established, but it's just more of that, right? That's such a great point. Such a great point.
Really beneficial for sure.
Awesome.
We've got Linda who chatted in. She said, we have a parent rep for each classroom level, and we often use them for input like this. They tend to be the advocates of the school and are very enthusiastic.
That's awesome. Yeah. Having a program like that. If you've gotten input like them or from them in the past like that, see if you can consolidate that. You might already be in a really good spot with everything we're talking about here. If there's somebody that isn't a parent rep too, see if there might be some gems hiding in some other folks that maybe aren't already involved. And this is a great way to maybe get them involved. it's a way to kind of sneakily do that as well as get some marketing information. So, all right, cool. So that's really the outline of defining. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of that. I don't have a great formula other than this. Like, think of somebody specific, write down everything that you can think of for them, including stuff that you get to, kind of think of like, this would be useful for me to know. And just write all that out. Yep. So you get to put on your marketer hat for this one here. All right. So I'm going to move on now to summarize. This one's a lot less. This one's a little bit more simple, because we're getting into kind of how you turn this into something useful for your school and something useful for you. So this becomes personal. But you need to summarize this information in a way, like I said, that you could give it to somebody else. You could give it to me, right? I know nothing about you. I don't know anything about your school. And they would read it and go, oh yeah, I get it. I understand who that person is. Like I can get a sense of them and where they're at right now in life, and what their journey was. They shouldn't have to be super familiar with your school to get it. And your process. For me, my favorite way to do this is to write up basically a short story. So as if I was telling this person's story to somebody else, and to include those details like, oh man, we have this amazing family. It's, this dad who's, 40 years old. He has a son who's 7 and a daughter who's 9. Their names are this, and tell the story, right, of, he was so frustrated trying to take them to different schools. They never seemed to really fit in, and he wasn't satisfied with the level of education that they had. And then he found this book, right? Like, you're literally like, just tell the story. It's the most compelling way I've seen an avatar summarized. And it's also the most useful way to then turn it around into something useful. Because again, if I just hand you a big sheet of all these data points, like they live in zip code here and their house has 3 bedrooms and their backyard has a play set and a pool, that tells you nothing about who they are, and it doesn't help you communicate to them at all. But putting it in a format where you can really immediately understand them and reference it again, very, very helpful. And you can use it. I usually like to, once I do that, I usually like to print it out. I'll name the person. If they have a name, great. If you want to give them like a pretty common avatar practice is to give them a name. Say like, this is married Matt, or this is, 2-child Taman. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with names on the fly.
You're creative. It's like Johnny, or
I don't know. But it's usually something to help you remember, like, what are the details of the family. So so giving them kind of like a fun name like that, that's a way to do it as well. If you want to use their real name, great. But name it, and I'll print it out. And before I write an email, before I write a newsletter, before I go into a meeting where I'm making decisions, right? Like leadership decisions, I'll pull it out and I'll look at it and I'll go, okay, this is my person, right? This is who I'm talking to. This is their experience. This is where they're coming from. Okay, great. Now I'm centered. It's a way to kind of center yourself with again, understanding who they are before they walk in the door, to say it that way. So that's the way that I use to do that. This was originated by a guy named Andre Chaperon, who has a company called Tiny Little Businesses, tinylittlebusinesses.com. He does a lot of trainings on just marketing and story in general. Fantastic resources. He has a lot of products. So I was like to just let you guys know, again, an incredible marketing resource. Use it or not, totally up to you. And the example I just kind of gave, like you're just outlining that sort of story. If that feels like too much work, then just type up something boring and just type up the details yourself, but synthesize it, right? Like explain it, write it as if you were doing like a company memo or something, like a company email, like, all right, here's our avatar. They're this and they're this, and they have this many kids, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any questions about that? I haven't seen any like questions come through. I love the activity. Thanks for David saying yay. Appreciate that. So yeah, any questions about that? Anything unclear or that you would like any more details on? Chat away. And so then the third point here is use it, right? So define, summarize, and use. So again, for me, summarizing it, I like to put it in something that I can print out, something that's sort of easy to digest and pass around. Because when you use it, the goal is to use this to drive strategy in your school, to drive decision-making. We're talking about marketing, but like I mentioned, it applies to everything, right? If you understand who your parents are and what that journey looks like, it affects every single thing that you do. It affects the words that you use. It affects your service and the different systems that you have in place at your school, right? Like if you think through like a system upgrade, right? Or a website experience, you're wanting to do a new website, like think through your avatar, think through your people. Do you need to have two languages, right? Are you in an environment where you have a lot of different cultures around you? And it's like, oh yeah, we need to let people easily choose a different language on the website. That's huge. But if you haven't done like that, if you haven't defined that avatar in that way, it's hard to sometimes remember that, and it's hard to make those kinds of decisions. So the goal is to use this to inform strategy and decision making. And I've got examples like marketing, messaging, types of school events, new programs, or offering system upgrades, etc. And that really ties into the two other principles that I have here, which is don't keep your avatar to yourself. Your team needs to know this stuff. At the very least, your leadership team. If this is just living in your head and you're the only one who knows your avatar for your school and who you're serving, it's not super helpful. The goal is to put it in a way that you can disperse the information. You want to give it to leadership. You want to give it to people who are also making those types of decisions, even to the teachers. That's up to you. That's your call. If you're giving it down to as well to the teachers, I would make it, you don't have to give them like every single detail, right? Give them something high level, something simple, just so they get an idea, and make sure that it ties to it ties to them somehow. It's not just like, hey, here's more information for you that you don't need. It should be useful. And the way that I think of that is, if you're doing an event for new parents or something like that, or you're inviting people to come and learn, and you have teachers there, you have guides there, then for me, I would want them to know like, hey, here's who we're for. This, like, as a school, this is really what we've determined, like who, like, we're really for. These are the people that we're serving. And you might have seen a point that I had up here that says this right here. You might actually have different groups and avatars. You might have like, well, we've got this type of person, but we also have a lot of this type of person as well. Those, like, maybe you've got two majorities. Make an avatar for both of them too. Most of the time, if you really get specific, there's one that, like, beats out the other in terms of like your core avatar, your core demographic. However, you're probably going to have bleed over. It's going to apply to other people. A common fear is like, well, we're for more people than just these people. Like, this is so limiting. It's like, well, yeah, that's not what we're doing. We're just anchoring it in your mind. Like, it's going to resonate with a wider group of people. So the goal is for you to be specific and for you to be clear on who you're talking to. And again, if you have like 2 majorities, make an avatar for both. If it's causing you anxiety, make 4 avatars. I don't care. Like if you have that many different kinds of people represented, make that many different avatars. It's really helpful. And a lot of people do that as well. So those are the other 2 things, but don't keep it to yourself. Don't keep it to yourself. Make sure that you share it with your team and with other folks. And then I've been talking about it already. Use your avatar to make strategic decisions. Those are the 3 principles that I've seen true over and over again. Base them on real people. Don't keep it to yourself, and use it. Use it. Print it out. Put it on your office and your wall. Review it in the morning, just to as part of your morning startup routine, that kind of thing. You've got to actually use it, or it is completely useless. If you're not going to use it, don't do any of this. But you will use it, and you should. So do all of this, and then it'll be helpful. You'll get a lot of benefits of clarity, really understanding, and it helps to organize people. Right? People need to know where we're going. What are we trying to do? And if you've got lots of different things, like we're for all parents, like that's too broad. That's too big. Even though it's true, that's too broad and too big for your school. Like your school, what are you trying to do? Who are you trying to serve? Like that is something that motivates people and kind of organizes folks around a mission. And it's far more powerful to define this and have that than to not.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I'm thinking about, and as you're talking, this keeps coming up for me, and I don't even know if this is a part of practice, but have you ever done like an opposite avatar? Like somebody who you don't like,
yes.
Exactly who you don't want in your community? And I imagine like that could be kind of helpful, like in contrast,
Yeah, absolutely. That's another really, really helpful exercise. I had the guy that I mentioned, the guy named Tiny Little Businesses, right? And Andre Chaperone, he had, let's see if I can find it. Oh, it's under articles here. So the way that he approached avatars was exactly that. He called them Frank and Matt. He made 2 different ones. Frank is who his audience is before working with him. And then Matt is who they want to be. And they made a little, he's a writer, obviously. Let's see if I can, he should have one where it's both of them opposite. No, okay. So I'll scroll up here to Matt. So he found this guy who is not named Matt. This is just a stock image guy.
He looks like Matt.
He does look like Matt, doesn't he?
Or Frank.
Or Frank, yep. Opportunity seeker, fear of missing out, focused on value extraction. So he's talking to like marketers and entrepreneur type people. Wannapreneur, does everything himself, doesn't see value in system, needs constant inspiration, motivated by money. Money first mentality, delivering value comes after extracting money. Seeks magic bullets, is always attracted to shiny objects. Always operates within his comfort zone, avoids commitment, builds short-term money makers over long-term strategy, that kind of thing. Hangs out in groups like him. So that's the before, and then we've got the after. Relentlessly executes on one business model. So the other guy was like always scattered, fear of missing out. Focuses on value creation first. The other guy was focused on making money first and then doing value. Invests in teams, driven by intention, purpose, and meaning. Money is only the fuel, never the destination. Establishes himself as a linchpin, somebody that the whole system can rely on, a reliable person. So yes, basically, this is a long answer to a short to a simple question. But yes, it's very useful to think of like, these are who we're not serving, especially if you've dealt with that person before, right? Like, and I'm sure you have. I'm sure you've thought of people that like, yep, not doing that again. Next time I see that people, I'm going to say, go down the street, go somewhere else.
And that comes up often. I mean, all of us have a story about a family that we've just tried so hard to get them on board. And we realize in the end of it, once we either counsel them out positively or they leave incredibly unhappy, realized we could have done some other things to avoid all of that. And so I feel like making an archetype that goes against, that's just a complete opposite of the parent avatar that we have. I feel like that would be almost easier to do because it's,
It is.
it stings and it stings for a really long time.
Yep.
It's like, we do
Yep.
not want to do that again.
It's if that feels easier, that's another great approach. Start with that. It's like, all right, who do I know I don't want, right? And write out all the things you know about them that made them like that, basically the reasons you don't want them, and then make an imaginary person that's the opposite of all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
then
because
boom, now you have
convincing
your avatar.
somebody from a core principle, like let's say they very early on in the relationship said, I'm really interested in knowing exactly where my child is at, like all the time. I want to know. If they're in your elementary program, you're going to have, well, first, the guide is going to have a really hard time, but you are also going to have a billion conversations because they're going to want results. They're going to want tests. They're going to want to know a lot of things. They're going to want to keep pulling the plant up and looking at the roots. And like, that's just not the family you want. And there are basic, principles that you can pay attention to in your tour. If you see that they keep gravitating towards those things or the things that we know go complete opposite of what the principles of Montessori is, then you can say, and Kim brought this up last time we talked, is you can say this, what, this doesn't sound like it's a good fit for you.
Yeah.
There are other schools that do that, and that's okay. We are just not that school. And like getting super clear about what you offer, why you offer, is going to make it so much easier for these avatars and archetypes to really emerge in your process.
And it gives you the tools and the ability to decide what to do with those people. Like you said, now when you have that in front of you and you have that in your mind on the tour, you see that person, you go, oh, that's totally a this archetype, or that's totally a this person. This is my response because I've already established that ahead of time. Yeah.
Yeah. And even to like, because it's also a little bit scary to like categorize people, right? Because then we come up with these stories that may not be accurate to who they actually are. So that's always like a fear. And I imagine Montessorians are probably the same way.
Yeah.
But then you can also pull, like put them in balance. Like, yeah, they had some qualities of this. Is it an archetype that you call the opposite of a parent avatar? Is that what you call them?
You can, I mean, they're both archetypes. You can call them both avatars. It's really,
Okay.
these are words that some marketer made up 10 years ago, I mean, not archetype, but like the avatar, like
Sure.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, you can make it whatever you want. Yeah.
Right. And then you put it on a scale, right? So there's more positive qualities than negative
Yes.
qualities. And
Yes.
is this family worth really bringing on to go that, or do they just have too many red flags and I can't
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
You always use your judgment, right? I heard a great quote. It was about something else, but it said something translated here. It would be, all avatars are useful. Or I'm sorry, all of them are wrong, but some are useful, basically. So like you're not like there, it's not actually like you don't have not everybody's going to fit into this like one mold, right? So you're not saying like, well, it's this or bust, everybody has to fit into this mold. Not what we're saying like at all. It's simply a guide, right? It's simply a compass. That's the best way I can use. And so you get to make that judgment call. I saw something here from Linda that said, is there risk in using your dream family as the avatar? What about those parents who aren't as agreeable, the ones that have to be won over, or you need to take a different approach in communicating with them? And then presumably because Deneen voiced that,
We
get out of my
thought of it
head,
at the same
get out of
time.
my head. Yep. That's why you're the best, Deneen. You know. So yeah, we just kind of talked about it, but yeah, I would say using your dream family. Another approach would just look at your most common, and maybe that's not your dream, but like, yeah, it's like we usually get people like this, and then they go through these challenges and we have to have these conversations. And then when we do, they are great and they turn out fantastic.
Yeah, and that's a really
That's,
good way to assess your community, and see where are some areas of improvement that you can do to really connect and have your parents lean in a bit more so you
Yeah.
can support them. Because
Yeah.
if you're continually seeing the same thing, then you can address it.
Yeah. And what you'll discover is, like, if you really think through like your dream family, right? The people that were just great. If you think back through their experience, like, they had doubts still, probably. They had questions. There were still things that had to be discussed
Mm-hmm.
over time. And so that's still something to consider, right? Even if they got there, they understood it quick and they moved quickly, still doesn't mean that it was just perfect from the get-go, right? So there's usually still some sort of process that happens. And the goal from a marketing standpoint, I know that's really where we're approaching this from. The goal from the marketing standpoint, if the goal is to use an avatar to increase enrollments in your school, what we're really trying to get to is the before state. You're trying to understand where are they at before they engage with our school? What's their experience now? Get into their head so that you can talk to them in a compelling way that serves them and that moves them into your school. That's ultimately the goal, really. That's what most people are doing when you try to create an avatar, is you're trying to understand how to talk to people in a way that moves them to action.
That's a good point. I like that. And that's actually a really good like ending of this too, is like, remember that we're
Yeah.
trying to, from a marketing
Yep.
standpoint and from prospective parents,
Yep.
where are they coming from?
Yep.
Because if we can start there, right? If
Yep.
we can empathize with our parents, then it just makes our journey so much easier, because we
Yeah.
empathize through the whole process, but we have
Yeah.
to make sure we do it at the very, very beginning.
Yeah. Definitely. And this will inform your the words you use on your website, the experience that you give on your website. Think of your onboarding experience, the whole tour schedule experience. Um, this might give you some insight that goes, oh, we need to make some changes. We need to do something different. Maybe we need to offer, this is so good for lead magnets, for coming up with ideas for lead magnets. If you're not familiar, a lead magnet is something you offer in exchange for an email address. So it's like 5 reasons why Montessori is the greatest thing ever. Get the guide here. Don't use that, but that's an example. But the only reason somebody would want that is if it actually solves a problem that they have. And so if you can really understand like where they're at before, like who you're going after, you can make a lead magnet tailored to that specific family, the challenges that they have. Which, again, to use the example from before, single mom with 3 kids, she's going to react differently to somebody else in a different situation. So it's super helpful to have that, because then it informs all of these other marketing decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been incredibly insightful, Stephen. Thank you for this. Just
So
walking
glad.
us through,
So helpful.
because
Yeah.
it feels like sometimes diving into a big giant ocean and you're like, I know this is important. I have no idea how to do it. And that's exactly why we structured these coaching calls, to
Yeah.
really give you the tools. And we're not like flying through 12 steps, like we're taking 3 weeks on each step, so that
Yeah.
you've got time to really dive into it and ask us questions, engage with us, and then come back for the last series, which, by the way, next week we don't have a coaching call because it's Thanksgiving. So we will see you all in December. But we're going to be doing hot seats, right? So if you are on this call, or you're, watching the recording, and you've got some really good things, but you really want to work through it with us, join us, and we can do that. And we can really help you carve out your avatar to make it work for your marketing. Because, as Stephen said, as I've said, as all of us Nido people have said, like, this is one
Yeah.
of the most important things that you
Yeah.
can do to make your life so much easier.
Yeah. I'll give one action point that really I think everybody should do if you want to get value out of this, that you need to do before next time, is you need to schedule 3 conversations. Schedule 3 conversations with parents. Take them to coffee, bring them in, whatever. Just do that. Just do that. Schedule 3 conversations to talk to them about their experience before coming to your school, and If you do that, that's a very tangible, super easy, so easy. And the fear is that we have to do it perfect, right? I just shared a lot of information. And that's always the curse with this stuff, right? Is like information overload. No, boil it down, super simple. Schedule 3 conversations. Try to get as much from that conversation as possible. You're trying to understand what they were dealing with, their state before they came to Montessori, their relationship with their children, everything. And then come back next time and they'll help you sort it out. So
chances are, and I actually did this coincidentally enough 2 days ago with some elementary families, and there were 4 of them at the table, and we were just having a lovely discussion, and there were themes that emerged. So chances are, when you have these conversations, you're going to start to see, oh, they were doubting what they were seeing in other tours and other systems, and something didn't feel right to them. And so when they walked into our school, it felt clean, it felt safe, it felt welcoming, all those things captured.
yes,
because you'll start to see a theme.
Yes. And now all of a sudden, like, we need to keep this thing clean. We need to put another
Right.
green thing over there, like another tree or something. Like,
Totally.
absolutely. Like, there's all kinds of little things like that. Yes. I love that point. That's so good.
Cool. Well, Stephen, as always, I'm sure we're going to invite you on another one, because it's always.
I hope so. It's always fun.
You're like our official Nido marketing guru.
Yes.
From the other people.
I gladly.
You are really awesome.
I gladly wear that hat. I love it. I love it. And I'm always available to, obviously, Nido members here. If you have questions, follow-up questions from this, please ask. I'm sure they'll let me know somehow. So
yeah, absolutely. And then if you could send us those resources you were mentioning, I'll make sure when live recording, or when our recording is in the members section, we'll have the resources as well. And Perfect. If you want to take the course and you haven't done it yet, please do so before 2 weeks from now, so we can have that foundation too.
Get to hear more of my voice. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. It's clear, so it's good.
Good.
All right. Take care, everyone. Good to see you.
Bye, everybody.
All righty. Bye-bye.